All right, it is 7 o'clock and I'd like to call this meeting to order. While this meeting is being held in person in consideration of ongoing COVID-19 health concerns, we are also offering the option for the public to participate through Zoom if that's what they prefer. Instructions on how to participate virtually are included in the City Council calendar item listed on the front page of missionks.org. Would you please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Audrey, would you please call roll?
Boltinghouse,
Here.
Davis,
Here.
Flora,
Here.
Inman,
Here.
Rothrock, Thomas, Schlosmacher. Thank you.
All right, item 1 is public hearings. We don't have any public hearings tonight, so we'll move into item 2 on our agenda, special presentations. We have one special presentation tonight. It's Senior Customer Service Manager Rebecca Galati is here to update us from Evergy.
Mask on, mask off.
You can take it off, that's
Okay.
fine.
To present. All right, perfect. Thank you, guys. So my name is Rebecca Galati. I work on behalf of Evergy. I work as a liaison for the city and the company. So most of us have met before. We try to do this presentation about once a year, an opportunity to talk with council as well as residents on any concerns, what the company is doing. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Do I just go right, Laura? Oh, I tell you. Okay. I think we're good to go. So this is just a very quick overview. We can kind of skip over this, but just an idea of kind of some of the work that we do in this role, just working as a liaison, any constituent or resident concerns that they have, any issues management, special projects, anything like that, billing questions are kind of some of the things that we deal with from the city from time to time. So next one. This, I just always like to remind, this is our service territory now. So as you all know, a few years ago, KCPL and Westar merged and are now Evergy. So this just gives an example of what that service territory looks like. It's 1.6 million customers, which is actually 1.6 million meters. And it stretches about 52,000 miles of distribution lines. We are located, the city is in Kansas Metro. So I just kind of like to point that out in case anybody has any questions there. We can go to the next one, Emily. Merger promises, just wanted to give this slide a quick update here. So these are just some of the promises we made in our merger, that we would not do rate increases for base rates for 5 years post-merger, which was in 2018. So that is, we haven't done any rate case filing since then. And then we also sent bill credits yearly to customers. So that's just provided in this slide as well. I always like to provide just one slide on what we're doing in the community. So this is just some information on what we're doing in the community across our service territory. There's always events every year between fan drives and heat relief. You see there, Cultivate KC, which says it's featured in the Northeast Kansas region, which I always like to talk about as well. And then there's some stuff going on in Wichita here on this slide. So just as a company, we want to be a good community partner across our service territory because we live and work here as well. So next one, Emily. Financial assistance, in case there are any residents, I wanted to provide this as well. So when the pandemic started, we suspended disconnects that went until July of 2021. There were no late fees. And then the company also offered payment arrangements during that time. And there are still, I know, financial assistance and COVID-19 opportunities out there, whether it's through Johnson County. I think the city will list stuff as well. The company has stuff. So if there's ever any questions on that, I always like to make myself a resource as well, because sometimes it's tough to track some of that information down. So I just wanted to provide this link today on what specifically Evergy has in that opportunity. And there's some additional payment programs that they offered during that time. Our energy mix, we get asked this question quite a bit. What does our energy mix look like? So this is just kind of a quick chart of what it looks like as of 2020. The company does have the goal of being carbon neutral by 2040. So there's a lot in plan right now to reach that goal. Renewables Direct City of Mission, I believe, was one of our first cities to sign up for that program. So the city is now a part of a program. And what was really neat about that program was the interest in adding renewables to our energy mix. So it wasn't that we had a wind farm and everybody signed up for that. It was that by participating, the city has helped us build a wind farm, of which we purchase a power purchase agreement from that. And so that was something that the city of Mission participated in, and I believe was one of our first cities there. So I just always like to share that as well. This is a big one. So tree trimming. You obviously have absolutely stunning trees in Mission, and this is pretty much across Northeast Johnson County in general. I also like to provide this information because we have a tree trimming policy through our company. We come out every 4 to 5 years to trim a full trim in your area, and it runs off of a circuit, not necessarily a city, but we will come in and do that. They go back and spot trim every 2 years. So one thing I like to provide here is just that information. If you're doing any trimming from a line that runs from the pole, the back of your house to your house, we obviously want to shut off the power for that so that you can do that safely or have your contractors do that safely. So I always like to include this, and the next couple slides we'll get into this a little bit deeper specific to Mission, but it is a process that we work on right now outside of our general process. We're at 10,000 individual customer requests to go out and see what's going on. So I always like to remind people that is an option too. If you've got some lines or some tree branches near a line and you've got some questions or concerns, our team will come out. This is one of my bigger ones. So trees per mile in Mission. So in our service territory wide, the average tree per mile is 58, and in Mission it's 146. So I just like to showcase this because, as we know, and as I said before, we have a lot of trees that we're working on here with the city, with the company, with our residents as well. And that just takes up such a big bucket right there. So I just like to showcase kind of that difference. I also like to provide that top slide, and I understand I work at a utility, so I speak in circuits. And so I do provide maps later, I promise. But this is kind of how our circuits work in the city of Mission. So these are the bigger ones that are feeding the city of Mission right now. The last trim is the last time we were out for that full trim. And then the next trim is when we're coming back for that full cycle again. So probably in the middle of those years, we were out there to spot, trim, and check. I just like to provide this because you can sometimes see with the trees, there are some more issues in those areas around storms or reliability if you're getting closer to that time. The way that we trim also is on a line where that top line, a lot of the telecom are the bottom one. So that top line, we're going to trim 15 feet around that. So when you've got a tree that's 100 feet tall, you're still going to have that overhang of those branches that can still come down during a storm or after the fact. And I think sometimes that can be tricky because a storm can roll through, everything's fine, and then 2 weeks later, a tree branch comes down on a line that causes a reliability issue. And so that's just something I like to bring up as we get into a little bit further on what's going on with reliability. I was just talking to Laura about this. I know this is a little convoluted, but it's just kind of a high level to show. We'll break this down in a second a little bit deeper, but this just gives you an example of all the circuits that are feeding the city of Mission right now. And there's a lot of crossover with your neighboring cities there, but these are kind of the top circuits that are feeding into the city of Mission. So we'll break down a little bit on what we've done to date in this area and then what we have planned as well. So this is a process I always also like to remind customers about. We have a frequent outage investigation process. This is started by just calling customer service and requesting a frequent outage check. What they'll do at that point is they will check your records, which is what I do a lot. I pull up the records to see what I'm seeing in the system. What's the outage? How many of you had? How long? What's the cause that we've logged in the system? But this team goes a lot deeper. So they're going to check that. They're going to review that with other causes in the area, what's happening in the circuit, what's happening on that line, what projects do we have planned, cross-reference anything, and then should they see that there's a need for work, then a project is going to start at that point. So I just think it's a great service to utilize if you feel like you are experiencing frequent outages. So I just like to remind people of that. And then this is just kind of the process. What we have is called our worst performing circuits. So as a company, we have worst performing circuits are those lower tiered circuits, and you'll see the ranking in a minute. But our circuits are ranked from 1 to about 2,200 on our service territory. And so 1 is the worst performing circuit, up to 2,200 would be our best performing circuit for our company. And so with this is kind of the process that we go through. I like to discuss this because I like to understand and explain how we have multiple projects going on at one time. So we may have some projects that we worked with the mayor and with Laura and the city to work on some specific areas of concern in Mission, whether it was residents that came to the city council members, whether it was residents that spoke to us directly. But this is also another project that we do outside of that, where we do go in and do work on this. And this is kind of the timeline that you look at. So usually it's starting about summer, and then they kind of review it through the year to set next year's plan. So this is something that they're going through right now. And I would hope to have that information each year around March on what those circuits are. None last year were in Mission. I did check that today to see what we had for 2021. But I always like to check at the start of the year to understand which areas they're working in for this. So we're not doubling efforts on what I'm trying to work on out of our service center with each city. So this is what we met on 2 years ago. We came in and we discussed what are the concerning areas from, again, the city and the residents. So what were we hearing? And we ranked our circuits. So these numbers in 2018 numbers that you see that I brought in 2019, that was out of former KCPL territory. So you see up there, it says circuit rank out of 1242. And then you go to this next one and it says circuit rank out of 2268. It's because we're now looking at Evergy service territory wide. So kind of the best math you can do there is double the numbers on the left to kind of get your ratio across. But what we did is in August, we began running inspections on these specific circuits, which means we sent teams out in trucks to run the lines to understand what was going on in those areas and to identify any infrastructure updates that needed to be done. And additionally, we sent tree crews out as well to note if there were any issues there, because it is a tag team effort. These were the 3 circuits that we identified between what we found in the field, how many customers they served in the city of Mission, and then what their rank was. So these 3 you see in their maps in a second going forward, but these are the 3 we targeted in 2019 in our 3 to 5 year plan. So it is a 3 to 5 year plan that we're working on for those, but those have been our targets. When I pulled the information most recently before this meeting, you're seeing it kind of a different layout here. So the circuits that for me, and I would love to hear the city council's feedback on this, along with any residents that were able to attend. And I'd have to pull those specific areas. But these 2 that I've got highlighted in green dropped pretty low in comparison to what I had seen before. And so I think those probably need to be our targets going forward. A few of those in there jumped quite a bit. When we jump forward, we'll see that one of them jumped. It was either the 43 or 31 that jumped up quite a bit. And that was the work that we've done recently in the city of Mission. That's the project we just completed earlier this year. We can go to the next one, Emily. Just a quick slide on our restoration process. I get this question a lot. How do you guys restore at Evergy? So critical infrastructure first, fire, water, hospital, most customers out to least customers out. So that's the restoration process through the company. And so if you happen to be on an outage that has 1,000 people out versus an outage of 10, you're going to be on a little bit sooner with that 1,000 people out as you work your way down. I did pull the outage cause. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I really nerded out with the data I got access to last week. I was telling Laura, I just poured over it. It was really fascinating. But this was the outage cause of what we're seeing. This is our Johnson County and Southland service territories. So I've asked them to break it down even further if we can for my city specifically, because I think this is one of the questions is what's causing the outages in my city? So you've got equipment there. And if you've ever talked to me, these are words you've heard before. but we've got equipment, which is usually on the Evergy side. You've got storm, vegetation, animal. So trees obviously come with squirrels. You've got storms as well. That group also has planned outages in the bucket, which planned outages can be proactive, reactive. If we're coming in to do a proactive planned outage at a customer request, that's one bucket. If it's reactive is what I consider for this plan that we put together. So we've designed a plan and we need to go in, shut the lights off for 8 hours to do the reliability work, turn it back on for that improvement. And then other is always that category that's just selected and you don't really know what that one makes up. So these were the two buckets. Again, this is Johnson County and then our Southland area, which kind of crosses over between a little bit of Miami County and then Johnson County as well. So my hope is eventually to take this to the city of Mission specifically so we can really drill down to what's going on there. Poll count, I just always like to have this slide as well. I think a lot of people assume all the polls are Evergy and a majority are. I would say at least 2/3 of the polls in your city are Evergy, but there are about 1,000 in Mission that belong to AT&T. We work as a partnership. So if you call me and it's an AT&T poll that's leaning or needs work done, I'm not going to refer you to AT&T. I'm going to reach out and we'll get that fixed there. But I just like to provide this information so that people understand. And then on this left side, we just provided some of the things we've been doing since 2019 continually with these target improvements. So this is probably why people are here. So the circuits that we targeted in 2019, 6843 is the one where we've started and completed the work in 2019 and 2020. So my supervisor gives me kind of a breakdown of the areas that were worked there. 6843 is also been broken into 2 phases. So phase 2 is scheduled for spring of 2022, but it's already in design. So this area right now is one of the ones that we have completed and we're starting on the second phase. This is Milhaven. So we've heard a lot from this area. This was a conversation, I believe, Laura, that we were starting in the start of 2020. And we had made plans with the mayor for me to come out and present at a neighborhood meeting to kind of discuss a little bit more. And then the pandemic hit. So this area was something where we did go out and we ran a check in this area in 2020 and again in 2021. We put it on our list of concerned circuits to work. This one just went into design last week. So the plan to update parts of this area and it's those addresses you see in there just to start will be winter of 2021 going into early of 2022. We consider this to be a couple phased plan in this area. So there's going to be additional phases, but this is the first one that we have going for Milhaven based on the feedback after our last meeting. This is 6813. So we've noticed this was also brought up in 2019. So I wanted to just keep this slide in there if there's anything specific from the residents or the city council. This area made up some of Milhaven. And so looking back, we weren't quite sure if we had this in there because it contained Milhaven or if there were other areas of concern. But we do have this slotted in as something to look at in spring of 2022 as well. 6821. So these areas are slotted for 2022 and they give the addresses up there. This was one of the ones we flagged again in 2019. And then I believe this is our last one, unless I'm wrong. This is 6831. And again, this says spring of 2022. So those are kind of those parameters. And I believe that's the end of mine. Yes. So the reason I just want to stop there for a second is the point of the meeting is to discuss, are there other areas you're seeing outside of these areas that are of concern? Again, we flagged those 2 circuits. So that's something I will add to my list. I'll pull a map with my crews to understand what those areas are that serve. But another thing I always like to remind people as well is we have outage alerts. So we have our outage map. I think most people are aware of that. If you create an online account, you can get outage alerts through the company. This was launched about a year and a half ago, where you can sign up for text or email alerts. And when you have an outage, they will email or text you the information on when you went out, if we have a cause, when a crew is assigned, and then what the estimated restoration time is. So this is just always something that I encourage people to sign up for, just so that you're kind of in the know of what's going on in that situation. The only thing that I like to remind people is that during a storm, they turn off the estimated restoration time, which I know is yet another time we would really like that information. But given the number of crews that are out there, the people that are out, and they're moving so fast, it's just too hard to predict that. But that is a great thing to sign up for. And then they also have bill reminders on that as well. So that's the end. That's what I had brought today. I just also like to always include, where do you call if your lights go out? Which is just Light KC. So any questions that you all have?
Any
for me
questions
now?
for Rebecca? Solly.
Hi, yes. I had some questions about communication related to those planned repairs, because I know we hear a lot as a city, and I didn't know, will residents get mailers about those plans from Evergy on when they can expect the upgrades in their area?
So they won't get emails or calls on when they can expect upgrades, but about a week or two out from when they're happening, yes, we do personalized phone calls to all the numbers that we have in our system associated with where that work is going to be. We roll out 2 phone calls. So we're going to have the first one about 7 to 10 days in advance. And then the second one's going to be a couple days in advance.
Okay.
We like to do that because weather shifts, crews shift, things like that. So we just like to have that reminder. What I do on those in Northeast Johnson County is I provide my phone number at the end of those if anyone has questions. Sometimes people are deferred to the call center, but I think that we've all worked together for so long, and I'd really like residents to understand what we've worked together as a city to get here and why your lights are going to be out for 8 hours. Because I think a shift we've all seen is people are working from home now. So when you used to go into the office and your lights blinked for an hour and you came home and your clock was flashing, it wasn't as big of a deal, but now we're knocking off of a Zoom call or we're in the middle of an interview. And so because of that, we've made that shift. We've also had to I appreciate you bringing this up, because the other shift was we used to defer to weekdays because of that. And then kids started schooling from home. You were working from home. And so then we started deferring to weekends. We started getting that question, why are you working on the weekend? Well, we're trying to not interrupt the middle of the week. We've started to kind of shift back to midweek. But it also, the gap between those times is nice for the feedback. If for some reason, it's just not going to work as a date and we hear from people, then we try to work around that as best we can. So,
Yeah.
yes.
No, that's helpful. So it would be on the city to kind of communicate those timelines to residents, the big picture of when they can expect those improvements.
Yes. And then just to stay in touch and make sure that we're kind of, how projects move and storms roll in, and it's just always a flowing process. But yes, that's why we like to have these meetings, so that we can kind of give that update and understand where we are. And I think too, sometimes we're working with contract crews, whether it's tree trimming or through this side of construction and maintenance. And so you don't necessarily know Evergy's out there doing improvements too. So I think that's always a great opportunity so that people know that we're out there working on the issues that they're concerned with.
Rebecca, I like your push alerts on outages. I wasn't aware of that. I'll have to sign up for that, but I'm not understanding why, if there's a storm, that your organization can't give an estimate on when repairs might be made, not in a specific time frame, but if it's going to be a week, you're not going to communicate that this is a big storm, it's going to be a week, or it's going to be, because I don't care about the little outages. It's the big one where you have to start making alternate plans.
And we
Oh,
do. We
okay.
don't on text messages, you're correct. But we do as a company. So when there is a big storm, our social media, we reach out to local reporters, news stations, and we will give that restoration estimation. It usually takes a day to get through the storm, depending on the size, but we will provide and say this storm could last up to, restoration could take 3 days, 4 days, 5 days for just exactly that reason. We want people to be able to be prepared. It's a little bit tougher to pinpoint exact areas, but also the company will say, St. Joseph has been hit really hard with this storm. Johnson County was hit really hard with this storm. We're seeing a majority of our outages in that area, so that pinpoints it down as well for those areas. And then they'll say, we're looking at a 3-day restoration or a 4-day restoration at this point. And then we keep that going. So as we move through, if we're getting to day 2 and we see that it might be wrapped up, we let people know. If it's going to push to day 5, we let people know as well.
Okay. Another tact Does your organization have service level metrics or goals?
For reliability?
Yes.
Yes, and that's where those rankings go in. I don't have a breakdown of how they decipher those, but yes, we turn in our reliability metrics every year to the Kansas Corporation Commission. And so that's where some of this data came from for me,
So-
is where do these metrics?
So do you
rank?
communicate your goals on service level? What, as a customer, what we can expect as a service level?
They do. They have, it's not as, I guess, simple as saying, this is the goal of outages. There's several metrics, and they had me, I used to try to bring those in, but the way that they divided customer minutes out with outage frequency, with events is pretty complicated, even just quite frankly for me to understand. But they do have the metrics. I could provide those. We file every year with the KCC on what our metrics are, what goals we're trying to reach, and then what our plans are to improve reliability in certain areas. And that kind of goes back to when we go into a rate case, why are we asking for what we're asking for, and where are we using that money? The rate case is designed to be about a year-long process to understand why the case is there and what needs to be done.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes, Laura.
I know as correct. Like timing, you're looking at 2019 data now.
This is 2020 data that we
2020,
looked at
okay.
today for 2021. And I actually had that conversation today because in the past, it's been available at the end of the first quarter is when we could pull that data, but every year it's improving on what we're allowed to, what we can pull. And we've done a lot of merging of our systems. So that was actually a question I had today with our team, is how can we share this data a little bit more consistently? Because what probably people have seen this year is we had about 35% more storms in 2021, but we're obviously looking at 2020 data right now. So that's where I like to have this meeting too. Is there an area that's on here that you're
Right.
seeing is worse? So I think that's definitely an ongoing conversation, Laura, of how can we get that data faster?
Right, because if you look at some of the reliability shifts that were included in your presentation, trying to understand what caused those, particularly in light of your timeline of when you start to go out and do the investigations in July of circuits and lines, trying to get that timing right so that we have the opportunity to best capture whether it's council goals or citizen goals.
Yes, and I was talking to the team today that I think the sweet spot would be to meet with cities in second quarter. So I think April to June would be the ideal time to come in and talk, outside of if there's another invitation or another opportunity to meet with community after that. But that's when I'm going to have the best data, and it's going to be the most recent, along with what are they doing on those worst performing circuits as well. So I do agree. I think if we can get there sooner in the year using the most relevant data, that would be. But I think too, Laura, if you have an area kind of like Milhaven, even though it wasn't popping up on our circuit list, we still went out there and did the work. And that's exactly what we should be doing. So we need residents to call and tell us what's going on in their neighborhood, so we know what areas to go out and target.
Does your internal equipment or systems not tell you when there's outages? You're relying on the customer to call in to tell you there's an outage?
We do. No,
Okay.
our systems
Okay.
tell us, and that's where the rankings come into play, and that's where they go out and do work. So there's work happening all over our service territory and in Johnson County as well. This was a specifically designed plan for the city. So this was outside of the general work that our service center does in Mission, outside of the worst performing circuit work that the company does in Mission. This was a third layer that we did because when I came into this role in 2018, when I met with a lot of my cities in Northeast, there was a lot of concerns about reliability. And so instead of relying on that, it was how do we come up with an opportunity and a program to make that reliability better, outside of it hitting worst performing circuit, outside of it hitting this other layer. This was just a separate plan that we put together.
Okay. Yes, RC.
I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate Evergy's or your individual presence in the community. I know that you guys sponsor a lot of events, and it makes me feel better that you're not somebody that I just see once or twice a year. And I know that if I have issues that you're going to be accessible and I can find you somewhere. So thank you.
Thank
for
you.
that.
I appreciate that. Those are my favorite.
All right, anybody else? All right, thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, guys.
All right, that concludes item 2. Moving on to item 3, issuance of notes and bonds. We have on our agenda the issuance of the 2021A general obligation bonds. Mr. Kimmel with Ellers is here to give us an update on the bond sale today. We will then have 3 separate actions to accept the bid and then to authorize the bonds. Is Mr. Kimmel here? Okay. Mr. Kimmel, go ahead.
All right, thanks, Mr. Mayor. The audio cut out as I was being promoted to a panelist, so I wasn't quite sure. I think I can share my screen, so I will do that. And it's nice to be with you all tonight. I have good news to share. We did take bids on the city's behalf this morning for your $3.4 million bond issue to fund the energy conservation improvements to various city facilities and infrastructure, as you're well aware of. And I'm here to present the results of that bond sale. I would note at the outset that because of the premium bid that we received from the winning bidder, which was Country Club Bank, we did reduce the overall bond amount by $195,000. So you can see the final par amount, as reflected on the front page of the sale day report, is $3,205,000. And that is also reflected in the legal documents as finalized by your bond attorneys at Gilmore and Bell. So I will just give you a few highlights and answer any questions you have. We did receive 6 bids on the city's behalf. Again, the low bidder was from Country Club. Low bid was from Country Club Bank. That had a true interest cost of just under 1.5%, 1.49. And the high bid was about 20 basis points higher at roughly 1.7%. We had estimated about 1.56%, so this was a little bit lower than estimated. And the bidding was very, very aggressive. If you go to the next page, the bid tabulation, you can see that the first 4 bids were all within about 4 basis points of each other. So Country Club, Baird, Commerce, and BOK, you can see we're all very tightly packed together. And I would just note, you've seen this premium bid structure before, but you'll note with the Country Club's bid, the coupons that they wanted on the individual bond maturities are all in that 3% down to 2% range. But the actual yields, the true interest expense that you are on the hook for, it ranges from 0.25% up to 1.6%. So really, we're still very much in a low interest rate environment. And what's really wonderful about this is that it just allows your future energy savings that you'll achieve through the conservation projects to go that much further in terms of funding debt service, and less of that debt service will have to come from other general funds. Just a few other points I would just note. We did, again, resize the bond issue. Oh, I should probably also mention, because I don't think we discussed this much during the pre-sale, but you've noticed on all of these pages that the official name of the bonds were General Obligation Bonds Series 2021A, and then green bonds. After talking quite a bit with bond counsel and city staff and doing some research on our own, we suggested to the city that the city self-designate these bonds as green bonds and really tell a little bit of a story about what's going on with the projects and the fact that this project is being undertaken through the state's FCIP program and also through your energy performance contract with CTS Group. And we can't really say necessarily one way or the other that it achieved better results, but we know that more and more investors are clamoring for green bonds and bonds that have demonstrable environmental benefits. And so we thought, especially since you could point to all of the paperwork and work that you've done to date through the FCIP program, why not add that a little bit additional visibility for this bond issue as something that will advance environmental sustainability. And so we did that, and it showed up in all of the bond markets, different calendars and notices as to upcoming sales. So, the market is still new enough for green bonds that, did it save you 1 basis point, 2 basis points? It's hard to know with definition, but it, I think, was something that was easy to add, and certainly it didn't hurt at all in terms of attracting bidders and aggressive bidders to today's bond sale. So I did want to point that out in case any of you caught, hey, where did that green bond label come from? Then finally, on the debt service schedule, I did want to note that the final debt service, and this is locked in until the point at which you decide to either prepay or to refinance these bonds in the future. But you can see that your annual debt service with today's bond sale will be almost exactly $250,000 per year. I think that it's about, in total, that's about $2,000 or $3,000 less per year than what we had estimated. And I think your city staff has a really good handle on how they expect to repay this debt. Finally, Mr. Mayor and Council, I wanted to touch briefly on the credit rating. We had a very positive rating discussion with S&P a week and a half ago. And I'm pleased to report that your AA+ rating was affirmed with flying colors. As most of you know, AA+ is only 1 notch below AAA, which is the very highest rating any municipal issuer entity can receive. And there was absolutely no stress on the city's rating. The rating analysts were very complimentary to the work you've done as a governing body, as well as that staff has done in terms of budgeting and maintaining very stable and strong reserve levels. Really, the analyst said it was about as much of a slam dunk of a affirmation as she's had in some time. And plus the fact that you've really weathered the pandemic relatively well with your finances and your economic activity. It just made their affirmation of your existing rating all the easier. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have either about the bond sale, the resulting debt service schedules for the city, or the credit rating. But I just wanted to congratulate you all on achieving the funding for these very exciting projects. And thank you also for the opportunity to work with you.
Any questions for Mr. Kimmel? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that the city council approve the winning bid from Country Club Bank of Leawood, Kansas, with a true interest cost of 1.4899% as presented by the city's municipal advisor, Ellers Incorporated.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? Seeing none, I would call for the vote. Audrey?
Schlosmacher. Thomas. Boltinghouse.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Rothrock. Inman. And Flora.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Mayor, I move that the city council approve an ordinance authorizing and providing for the issuance of the general obligation bond series 2021A.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions on this motion? Seeing none, please call for the vote.
Rothrock. Flora.
Aye.
Boltinghouse.
Aye.
Inman. Davis.
Aye.
Schlosmacher. Thomas. Motion carried.
And Mayor, I move that the city council approve a resolution prescribing the form and details of an authorizing and directing the sale and delivery of the series 2021A bonds.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions on this motion? Seeing none, please call for the vote.
Flora.
Aye.
Inman. Boltinghouse.
Aye.
Rothrock. Schlosmacher. Davis.
Aye.
Thomas. Motion carried.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Kimmel.
Thank you.
That concludes item 3 on our agenda. We will move on to item 4, our consent agenda. And our consent agenda does have 4 items on it this evening. Our council committees met on October 6th, and we fully discussed each of these items. The committee agreed that the items listed on our consent agenda are routine enough to be considered under a single motion. If a council member or a member of the public would like any item removed from the consent agenda, they may request that at this time. Hearing no request, I would entertain a motion to approve. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions? Audrey, please call for the vote.
Davis,
Aye.
Boltinghouse.
Aye.
Rothrock. Inman. Flora,
Aye.
Thomas. Schlesmacher. Motion carried.
All right, concludes item 4. Moving on to item 5, public comments. If any members of the public would like to make a comment on an item that's not on the agenda, now would be the time to make that request. If you are participating through Zoom, please either add your comment in the chat feature and it will be read aloud, or note that you would like to speak and we will call on you shortly to make your comment verbally. Please remember that everybody at the meeting is privy to your question. If you are part of our in-person group tonight, please raise your hand but stay seated and we will call on you to come to the lectern to make your comments. When you make your comment, please state your name and city of residence for the record. Is there anybody who would like to make a comment? Hearing none, we will close this item 5, move on to item 6. Action items from the Planning Commission. We do have one item that was brought forward from the Planning Commission, which is approval of case number 21-07. This is the application for zoning and preliminary plat, preliminary development plan, and special use permit for the construction and operation of a sanitary sewer pump station at 5701 Rowe Avenue from Johnson County Wastewater. Mr. Scott, would you please come forward and provide your report?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if I have a brief report, so this will take a little bit of time. I thought I'd start off by introducing Patrick Denny from Johnson County Wastewater. And I did ask him to give a brief presentation to kind of give some background context to the application tonight.
All right,
Patrick.
welcome.
Thank you, and I'll try to keep this high level and brief. My name is Patrick Denning. I'm with Johnson County Wastewater. I'm the Assistant Chief Engineer in charge of existing infrastructure. With me this evening is also Mike Kalis from HDR Engineering in the audience there. You can go to the next slide, please. The agenda for this presentation is just the purpose of why we're here. Just really high level quick on the Nelson Wastewater Facility and our integrated plan. The Rock Creek Pump Station Improvement Plan at 5701 Rowe, which is, you can see right there in the picture, and then quickly our schedule. Next slide, please. The purpose. We are here to ask for zoning or city council approval of zoning, a zoning change, preliminary plat, preliminary development plan, and a special use permit for a new Rock Creek pump station. Next slide, please. Johnson County Wastewater has negotiated a flexible long-term plan with the state, Kansas Department of Health and Environment, to manage rates and sequence projects. And not too long ago, Aaron Witt came and talked about the Nelson project specifically at 4800 Knoll here in Mission, which we anticipate the rehabilitation to be from 2024 to 2029. This will include needed improvements to this pump station that we're talking about tonight, and the eventual decommissioning of our Martway facility, which is right behind Mission Bowl. If Mission Bowl is still standing right now, I don't know. I haven't been by there. Partially. Okay. Next slide, please. This is a brief or a map of the Nelson Complex service area, but what you're seeing, the two colors are the two service areas that this current pump station serves. So it's quite a large area. The pink area, the Rock Creek Pump Station directly serves and pumps to the Nelson Wastewater Treatment Plant. The blue is pumped once to Rock Creek and then pumped again to the Nelson plant. So all the wastewater from the colored areas there is conveyed via this pump station. Next slide, please. The pump station has been in its current location since the 1950s and expanded many times. It's in its current location through a right-of-way agreement with the Kansas Department of Transportation, KDOT. It's in KDOT right-of-way, basically. Our current capacity is 12 million gallons per day, but as part of this integrated planning effort, we'll ultimately be at 39 million gallons per day through this pump station. And we'll design that now. So the facility is designed for the ultimate. As far as the structure, we may add additional equipment later that won't impact the structure. So the big construction project will be now. It's more economical to rebuild a new pump station rather than rehabilitate the existing one. And so that's what we're proposing. We are constructing an electrical building out there right now that you may see as you go to that intersection. That should be done next year. And then we anticipate the project to be between 2024 and 2028. That's not a 4-year construction. We just haven't identified when in that time period construction will take place quite yet. Currently, KDOT owns the property in the red outline. Johnson County Wastewater is working to acquire the area in the blue. The new pump station is expected to cost around $15 million. And so it's in our best interest, our ratepayers' best interest, and your citizens' best interest that we own that property and know that we can be in that spot. Otherwise, we're still subject to KDOT right-of-way agreements. And KDOT right-of-way agreements aren't really written for facilities. They're written for underground infrastructure where if they need you to move, you go move it. And that kind of arrangement doesn't work very well for a facility like this. The KDOT is agreeable to this. They do want an offset from the bridge along Shawnee Mission Parkway. And so we've worked with them to offset the property off the bridge so they can do routine maintenance there. Next slide. Okay. This is the plan view of the future pump station. The area in blue will be a stormwater easement to the city. The area in pink will be a utility easement. And the area in yellow is a sidewalk that will probably be put in via a city project to redevelop Row. We are working through an agreement with city staff so that Johnson County Wastewater will pay our fair share of the sidewalk, but it may come through a city project. Next slide, please. Here's the landscaping plan for the facility. It'll have a fence all the way around it. There'll also be trees. The trees near the pump station will all be inside the fence, and then there'll be some trees north of the drainage way as well. There won't be trees between Shawnee Mission and the pump station because they will need access back there to maintain the bridge. But that is the current landscaping plan. Next slide. And there's a rendering of the pump station with the landscaping, the old facility removed and the new facility. The new facility will match the brick of the current electrical building that's being constructed now. And we chose that to match the other newly constructed buildings in the area north of Johnson Drive there. Next slide, please. So again, the schedule here is we're working now through this process to acquire the site from the Kansas Department of Transportation, currently building the electrical building to serve the old facility, and then it'll switch over to serve the new facility. And we'll hopefully conclude design in 2023 and construction in the 24 to 28 range. Again, not 4 years of construction, but in that time period. Next slide. With that, I'll stand for questions or when that appropriate time is. And just a plug for the jcwnelson.com website, which has all the updates on the wastewater treatment facility improvements.
Any questions?
I got one.
Yes, Nick.
Just to confirm, you guys didn't do any consulting for the kind of the look or the architecture of it with the people that are going to build the gateway to incorporate any of those elements, right?
We have not talked to Gateway about incorporating that. We tried to match the current commercial developments there.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion. Unless, wait a minute, Mr. Scott, do you have something?
Now we get into the boring planning stuff. I'll try to make this as quick as possible. As Mr. Denning did describe, this is a pump station. Address is 5701 Rowe Avenue. It is the very far eastern end of the city, basically in an area that's right away owned by KDOT for the Shawnee Mission Parkway Johnson Drive interchange. Because they are desiring to purchase a portion of that property and actually own that fee simple, that's going to require some steps through a zoning process, which essentially is establishing a zoning district for that area, approving a preliminary plat, approving a preliminary development plan, and then approving a special use permit. So all of those things have become incorporated into the ordinance that was presented to you tonight. It was heard by the Planning Commission at their meeting in September. Very quickly, staff is proposing that the area be zoned MP, which is Industrial Park District. And kind of going through this, the code analysis, in particular, the golden rule, which is very important in planning. We look at a number of criteria, 14 different criteria. And very quickly, I'll go through these, just kind of read them into the record. The character of the neighborhood. This is a variety of land uses surrounding the property, including mixed use to the east, which is the Gateway site, offices to the north, which is the Sunflower Medical Group, and then residential to the south. There's a neighborhood in Fairway, just on the south side of Shawnee Mission Parkway. The zoning application will provide the best means for permitting the use in a controlled manner that has the least impact on the surrounding uses and is most compatible with those uses. Criteria number 2, the zoning and uses of nearby properties and the extent to which the proposed uses would be in harmony with such zoning and uses. The zoning will require that the uses be conducted in an enclosed building and little to no noise, vibration, or other types of pollution. The zoning requires that truck traffic to and from the site be directly on an arterial road that is 4 lanes, which Rowe Avenue is. The zoning has provisions for landscaping and materials of the building. All these provisions allow the proposed use in the site to be in harmony with the surrounding properties. And as Mr. Denning pointed out, the landscaping around the site, the brick that's going to be used in the exterior of the building matches the brick in some of the other buildings in the area. There's going to be a black wrought iron fence. It was initially proposed that would be on the public facing side of the property along Rowe. The Planning Commission requested that the applicant consider surrounding the entire parcel of property that wrought iron fence, which the applicant has agreed to do. So we'll finalize that, and the final development plan is presented to the Planning Commission at a later date. Item number 3, the suitability of the property for the uses to which it has been restricted under the applicable zoning district. The parcel in question is small and has topography that would not lend itself well to more traditional development. It is also at the low point of the watershed near a creek, which makes it ideal for a public utility use, but not much else. Number 4, the extent to which approval of the application would detrimentally affect nearby properties. As stated above, the suggested zoning district will provide controls that reduce or eliminate any potential detrimental effects that a permitted use may have to the surrounding properties. And the proposed use is already on site and has been for nearly 60 years without any impact to surrounding property. Item 5, the length of time the property has remained vacant as zoned. The property has never been zoned. It served as right-of-way for Shawnee Mission Parkway and the site of a sanitary pump station for the past 60 years. This proposed zoning will only ensure that the measures are taken to reduce any impact that the proposed use may have on surrounding properties. Item 6, the relative benefit to public health, safety, welfare by retaining applicable restrictions on the property as compared to the destruction of the value of the property or hardship to the owner association with denying its request. Again, the proposed use is already in existence on the site and has been for nearly 60 years without any zoning. The proposed zoning for the property to MP Industrial Park will go only to ensure that the property conforms to the high standards of the zoning that are intended to protect the surrounding properties. Master plan or comprehensive plan, this comprehensive land use plan and the East Gateway Master Plan are both silent to this parcel. Item 8, the extent to which the proposed use would adversely affect the capacity or safety of that portion of the road network influenced by the use or present parking problems in the vicinity of the property. The proposed use will have little impact on traffic or parking. Truck deliveries of chemicals to the proposed sanitary sewer pump station will be once a week. The pump station will be unmanned, thus there's no need for parking as no employees will be working there on a daily basis. Recommendation of the professional staff. Staff recommends that this is the appropriate zoning MP Industrial Park. Number 10, the extent to which utilities and services, including but not limited to sewers, water service, police, and fire protection, and parks and recreation facilities are available and adequate to serve the proposed use. The proposed use for the site is a sanitary sewer pump station. Sewer services, water, and electricity to the site are all adequate. Police and fire protection are adequate. Item 11, the extent to which the proposed use would create excessive stormwater runoff, air pollution, water pollution, noise pollution, or other environmental harm. The proposed use has already been operated on the site for nearly 60 years without any significant environmental impact. The proposed zoning and the site plan will further ensure that potential use of this nature are addressed in the development process. Item 12, the extent to which there is a need for the use in the community. There is great need for sanitary sewer pump station and wastewater management facilities in the community, as Mr. Dennings already pointed out. Item number 13, the economic impact of the proposed use in the community. The proposed zoning use will ensure the future economic viability of the area. And finally, item number 14, the ability of the applicant to satisfy any requirements applicable to the specific use imposed pursuant to the zoning district regulations. The applicant is highly regulated utility that operates under stringent state and federal requirements and to the industry standards. The proposed use is permitted within the MP industrial zoning district. So those are the 14 criteria for the golden rule. Staff believes that this applicant and the appropriate zoning of MP Industrial Park satisfies all 14 criteria of the golden rule. So staff would propose that the property be zoned to MP Industrial Park zoning. The second item is a preliminary plat. We don't have any conditions for the preliminary plat. Staff proposes that the preliminary plat as presented be approved. The third item is development plan, preliminary development plan. There are several conditions that staff has recommended for the preliminary development plan. One, the city shall grant a waiver of the required minimum lot area of 10 acres. That's currently required under the MP zoning. Item 2, the city shall grant a deviation of 25 feet from the required minimum front yard setback. 3, the city shall grant a waiver of the required 1 parking spaces per 500 square feet of the total floor area. 4, in lieu of the bile retention basin to capture stormwater runoff, the applicant shall provide a hydrodynamic flow separator at the low point of the surface drive area and shall be responsible for routine maintenance and cleaning of the separator to the satisfaction of the city. A memorandum of understanding will be prepared and entered into outlining provisions for the construction of a public sidewalk along Row Avenue in front of the property, which is required by code. Such memorandum of understanding shall be finalized prior to the approval of the final development plan. And as Mr. Denning has indicated, we are already in discussions about the memorandum of understanding. A final development plan will be submitted to the city and approved by the planning commission prior to the issuance of any building permits. Floodplain development permit and other associated permits required prior to the issuance of any building permit. The applicant must obtain all approvals from the Consolidated Fire District Number 2 prior to issuance of the building permit. The applicant must obtain all approvals from Johnson County Wastewater, Johnson County Wastewater District 1 prior to the issuance of the building permit. Demolition plans for the existing pump station must be submitted to the city for review and approval prior to the issuance of any demolition permit. The applicant must submit a site plan, construction documents to the city of Mission for review and approval prior to the issuance of the building permit. The applicant shall be responsible for any damage to city infrastructure, including roads, curbs, sidewalks. They must repair infrastructure to like standards, including, or better conditions, excuse me, prior to the issuance of any final certificate of occupancy. The applicant will provide a 2-year warranty bond on any public infrastructure installed as part of this preliminary development plan. Said bonds will be placed on file with the City of Mission Community Development Department. And finally, the preliminary plan approval shall lapse in 5 years from its effective date if construction of the project has not begun or if such construction is not being diligently pursued. However, that the applicant may request a hearing before the city council to request an extension of this time period. Staff will recommend approval of the preliminary development plan with those 14 conditions. And then finally, a special use permit, that is a requirement under code for the operation of a sanitary sewer pump station. And staff recommends approval of the special use permit with the following 3 stipulations. All necessary and applicable permits and approvals for construction of a sanitary sewer pump station shall be obtained from the Kansas Department of Health and Environment prior to construction. Once constructed, the sanitary sewer pump station shall be operated and maintained in accordance with all applicable permits and licenses issued by the KDHE and any other applicable state or federal regulatory agency for as long as the sanitary sewer pump station is operational. And finally, an odor control system sufficient to eliminate any odors detectable from outside the pump station shall be in place and operational for as long as the sanitary pump station is operational. And on that final note, I will make a comment that at the Planning Commission, we did have one resident that spoke about this, and that was the concern was odor control. So basically that stipulation is that they maintain an odor control system at all times and it's operational. So staff would recommend the approval of a special use permit with those conditions. That is my report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Scott. Any questions for Mr. Scott?
I have one on the sidewalk that would go along Row. Would that go all the way under the bridge, under Shawnee Mission Parkway? And would we have to coordinate with Fairway at all to connect up on the
Yeah,
other side? or-
so the city's going to be working with Fairway, I think, next year to reconstruct or resurface Row. So that would be the optimal time to do that work. And the sidewalk would essentially go from Granada and Fairway north all the way to Johnson Drive. 2024, okay.
Sure. Thanks.
All right, any other questions from Mr. Scott? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that the city council approve the rezoning, preliminary plat, preliminary development plan, and special use permit for the construction and operation of a sanitary sewer pump station at 5701 Row Avenue.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please call for the vote.
Inman. Aye. Schlesmacher. Davis.
Aye.
Rothrock. Boltinghouse.
Aye.
Flora.
Aye.
And Thomas. Motion carried.
All right, that concludes item 6. Moving on to item 7, committee reports. Councilmember Inman, would you please provide a report for the Finance and Administration Committee?
Good evening. The Finance and Administration Committee met on October 6th and considered a total of 8 items. The acceptance of the evening or the meeting minutes were approved under the consent agenda along with the LGR Legislative Advocacy Services Agreement, Janitorial Services Contract Award, and the Audit Services Contract Award. Additionally, the three motions to authorize the sale and issuance of the 2021A general obligations bonds were considered under notes and bonds. There are three additional items for review on the regular agenda tonight. Item 7A, ordinance imposing 3/8% citywide retail sales tax. At the September 21st, 2021 mail ballot election, Mission voters approved the renewal of the dedicated street sales tax at the increased rate of 3/8%. The proceeds from the renewal will finance the cost of transportation improvements, including the construction and reconstruction of streets, bridges, sidewalks, curbs, gutters, trails, transit facilities, bicycle lanes, street lighting, traffic signalization, signage, and landscape along the rights of way and related improvements. There was a total of 1,650 ballots cast, with a 77.15% in favor of supporting an increased investment in street maintenance. The election results were then certified on September 28, 2021. The final step in the process requires the approval of an ordinance to formally impose and levy the sales tax, as well as provide notice to the State Director of Taxation that the sales tax will become effective on April 1st, 2022 and expire on March 30th, 2032. Mayor, I move the City Council approve the ordinance imposing the special 3/8% citywide retail sales tax to finance transportation related improvements and providing notice to the State Director of Taxation requesting the sales tax commence on April 1st, 2022 and expire on March 30th, 2032.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? Yes, Solly.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank staff for all their hard work on this. I know we keep hearing from residents over and over that streets are the number one thing, and I think this really cements that, and thank our citizens for having the trust in us and voting for this.
Anybody else? Seeing none, Audrey, please call for the vote.
Thomas. Rothrock. Flora.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Inman.
Aye.
Schlesmacher. Boltinghouse.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Item 7B, the STO/UPOC adoption. The Uniform Public Offense Code and Standard Traffic Ordinance have been published by the League of Kansas Municipalities since 1980. They are updated each legislative session and are designed to provide a comprehensive public offense ordinance and a comprehensive traffic code for Kansas cities. The 2021 versions became effective July 1st, 2021, and included minor changes and amendments to the current practices. Also, during the review of the STO and UPOC update, staff realized the city code relating to drug offenses had not been deleted after the UPOC began including all drug offenses. To ensure there is no competition among ordinances, the city attorney recommends deleting Chapter 215, Article 3, offenses concerning drugs from Mission's municipal codes. To maintain the uniformity with agencies in the area, the state of Kansas, and the actions of the state legislature, it is recommended that these codes be adopted. There are two ordinances that have been prepared for council action to adopt these changes from the 2021 STO and UPOC and fully incorporate them into Mission City Code. An additional ordinance to delete Chapter 215, Article 3 was also included for consideration. Mayor, I move the City Council approve an ordinance adopting the 2021 edition of the Standard Traffic Ordinance for Kansas City, 28th edition STO, as published by the League of Kansas Municipalities.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, Audrey, please call for the vote.
Schlesmacher. Boltinghouse.
Aye.
Rothrock. Thomas. Inman.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
And Flora.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Mayor, I move the City Council approve an ordinance adopting the 2021 edition of the Uniform Public Offense Code for Kansas City's 37th edition UPOC as published by the League of Kansas Municipalities.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, Audrey, please call for the vote.
Thomas. Schlesmacher. Flora,
Aye.
Boltinghouse,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Rothrock, Inman.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Finally, Mayor, I move the city council approve an ordinance deleting chapter 215, article 3, offenses concerning drugs from the code of the city of Mission.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Comments or questions? Seeing none, Audrey, please call for the vote.
Rothrock, Boltinghouse,
Aye.
Thomas, Davis,
Aye.
Schlosmacher, and Flora.
Aye.
Oh, sorry, and Inman.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carried.
Item 7C, animal trapping regulations. Earlier in the year, the city was contacted about an incident that involved the injury of a raccoon in a spring-loaded trap placed by a wildlife control company. This spurred staff to research potential modifications to Chapter 210, Section 210.170 of the Mission's Municipal Code relating to animal trapping. As many cities have already banned the usage of spring-loaded traps and the extensive damage these devices can cause, an amendment to the code was proposed. This amendment would prohibit the use of traps while still allowing for traditional cage-style traps to be used when combating wildlife nuisances, as well as mouse and rat traps. An ordinance was drafted for council consideration to affect the proposed code changes. Mayor, I move the city council approve the ordinance to amend chapter 210, section 210.170, trapping prohibited of the Mission Municipal Code to prohibit the use of certain animal traps.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions or comments? Seeing none, Audrey, please call for the vote.
Boltinghouse,
Aye.
Flora,
Aye.
Thomas, Rothrock, Inman,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
and Schlosmacher. Motion carried.
That concludes the finance and administration report.
Thank you. Councilmember Boltinghouse, will you please provide a report from the Community Development Committee?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The Community Development Committee also met on October 6th and considered two items with the meeting minutes included for approval under the consent agenda. The zoning preliminary plat, preliminary development plan, and special use permit for the construction and operation of a sanitary sewer pump station at 5701 Rowe Avenue from Johnson County Wastewater was approved under the Planning Commission. There is one additional item for review tonight. Item 7E is a resolution of support for the Climate Action KC plan. Climate Action KC is a nonprofit regional collaborative bringing more than 100 elected officials and community leaders together to reduce emissions, invigorate the economy, promote public health, and improve the quality of life across the Kansas City region. The organization developed the Kansas City Regional Climate Action Plan, also known as CAP, which aims to transform the metropolitan area into a more resilient, equitable, and healthy community. This is achieved through an ambitious set of interrelated strategies that will help to mitigate climate change by achieving net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050 and adapt to and bounce forward from the many risks climate change poses. The plan creates a new platform to build on, accelerate, and scale up existing efforts through new models of collaborative regional leadership. Interim net zero goals focus on local government operations by 2030, energy generation operations by 2035, and homes and buildings by 2040. A resolution is proposed for council to endorse the plan and to commit to review and implementation as appropriate the various strategies to reach the net zero goals. Mayor, I move the City Council approve the resolution endorsing the KC Regional Climate Action Plan by recognizing its goal of a net zero metropolitan region by 2050 and committing to review and implement as appropriate the solutions and strategies included in this plan.
We have a motion and a second. Comments or discussion? Solly.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the Sustainability Commission for their support of this initiative. I think due to some scheduling conflicts, they couldn't make it here tonight, but wanted that brought forward from our council liaisons, Debbie and I. And I just wanted to say I fully support this resolution and hope we'll make progress towards the more ambitious 2030 goal set for municipalities.
Anyone else? Seeing none, Audrey, please call for the vote.
Inman,
Aye.
Flora,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Thomas. Boltinghouse,
Aye.
Rothrock, Schlosmacher. Motion carried.
Does that conclude your report? All right. That concludes item 7. Moving on to item 8, unfinished business. Would you not have any unfinished business? Moving on to item 9, new business. We don't have any new business, so we're moving on to item 10. Comments from the city council. This is an opportunity for comments from council members. Does anybody have anything they would like to share? RC.
I just want to remind everyone that the Mission Community Food Pantry will be celebrating their year anniversary this Saturday from 2 to 4. We've fed over 5,000 people in our first year, and we'd love you guys to come out and celebrate with us. And then also the Harvesters Mobile Food Distribution will be happening on Saturday, October 28th at 7 a.m.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Yes, Ken.
I just wanted to inform and make sure that I'm reporting back to the council. We have a group that's been meeting. This is the second meeting that we've had with the Racial Equity in Communities initiative. That's a pilot initiative that's taking place in Johnson County. It includes staff from Johnson County, the City of Mission, representatives, Lenexa, Roland Park, let's see, Prairie Village, and those are it at this point in time. It's a well-attended program, very impressive individuals that have been participating and leading the discussion. We will have further information as we move along, but the representatives from the City of Mission, active ones include Sergeant Matt Bierbach, myself as an elected official. We also have Ann O'Leary, who has been participating. Dan Madden is on the roster, but obviously he's got other meetings to attend with the FBI Academy that he's currently attending. We also have Emily Randall and Laura Smith, who are on staff. We have 2 additional members that have not been able to attend at this. I'm sorry, Carolyn Gossman was there. I apologize. So that is my report. I just wanted to make sure that we kept you aware of this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 11, Mayor's Report. I do not have a report, so we'll move on to item 12. Ms. Smith, do you have anything you would like to share with City Council?
Yes, good evening. Just a couple of things. I think clarification, Councilmember Rothrock, is the Harvesters Mobile on Saturday, the 30th. I believe the 28th is a Thursday. Okay. That's all right. And Trinity Lutheran, I think everybody knows that, but for the Mission Community Food Pantry, anybody who would want to stop by, including the public, that's at Trinity Lutheran. Just a reminder that the Parks and Recreation Department will be hosting the Spooky Walk this Friday evening at Streamway Park from 6 to 8 p.m. So it's a great event last year. They've made some changes and modifications based on feedback. So look forward to being able to host that for our families this year. Reminder that advanced voting begins this Saturday. Restaurant Week. So the second Restaurant Week this year, hosted by our Mission Business District, begins next week and runs from October 25th through October 31st. So I would encourage everyone to get out and enjoy the variety of restaurants that we do have in our community. Our police department will be hosting a drug take back event this coming Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the police department. If you have unused prescriptions that you'd like to turn in, it's a great way to dispose of those. Just a reminder that we will have a work session next Wednesday on the 27th at 6 p.m. to finalize our 2022 or look at the options for finalizing our 2022 employee benefit renewals. We've been in conversation with our broker all this week. I do not anticipate that we will be in a position to send a packet out on Friday, but we will have a packet out in advance of that work session. And just a reminder, then we'll have a special meeting. So we'll have that work session that evening, and then we'll have another week before we ask you to make a final decision on that. And we will have a special meeting on November 3rd ahead of our committee meetings. And that special meeting will be at 6 p.m. ahead of the 6:30 committee meetings. September interim financials are in your packet. Not a lot that looks very different from anything we've seen over the course of the year. This packet and these interim financials have now been revised to reflect the revisions that we made through our budget adoption process to the 2021 budget. So if you're looking at some comparisons in terms of percentages, it's going to look a little bit different, but that's because we've been able to increase sales tax, anticipated sales tax revenues, and some other things. So you'll see a slight change, but we are absolutely tracking consistent with where we have been all year. Sales tax performance continues to, be even slightly above our projections. Sort of the major expenses in September were all related to our street program, which is great. We have been out there, both Celia and the Public Works crews and our contractors have been out working hard on the streets. So unless anybody has any other questions, I don't have a lot else to cover in the interim financial, and that concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item 13, executive session. We do have a need for an executive session this evening, which will be a consultation on a privileged communication. The governing body and those individuals that are named in the motion will adjourn to an executive session for the allotted time. When that time has expired, the governing body will reconvene to do one of the following. One, extend the time required for discussion and return to executive session, or two, continue with our regular legislative meeting. As a reminder to the public, the governing body may take no binding action in an executive session. So I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, go ahead. Go ahead.
Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, the council will now convene to executive session and return to the regular meeting at 8:52 p.m. All right, let the record reflect, it's 8:52. We are back in session. Before we adjourn tonight, I want to share with the public that the video from this meeting will be available through a link on our website, missionks.org. There being no further business tonight, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. We are adjourned.